have heard it said. It's a phrase that might ring a bell in your ear. It's something that Jesus would say. His favorite place to use it was actually in his large teaching on the Sermon on the Mount. And actually, he's quoting someone here. He's quoting King Solomon. And in this, King Solomon used to use a similar type of phrasing, but the goal that King Solomon had was one where he was trying to help the people that have been chosen by God to understand that they are separate and different than the rest of the world. And so he would lay this out for everyone of, you have heard it said, and he would keep going on this, and he would keep adding to this with the goal of distancing the people of Israel further and further than from everyone else that was out there. But we know that when Jesus came, there was a second piece to that phrase. Instead of just being, you have heard it said, he would add on to it, but I say to you. And so Jesus would flip these things on their head because he had a new way of being and a new invitation for us, which I don't know about you, but that is good news, because I don't know how many of us in our DNA testing that perhaps we've done that has Jewish descendant heritage in us. And so with that, it is good news that we are a people chosen by God, no more just for a set apart people, but that everyone is invited to come and be a part of God's beloved people. And so, as we venture together on this new sermon series, which in short is called You Have Heard It Said, but I don't even know if you can read the smaller words that are up there. You see, Matt is like, Melissa, if you want them to be able to read the words on the screen, you can only have so many words on the screen. But the title I wanted to use is the one under it, which is The Worst Stewardship Series Ever and Why It Changes Everything. And so I still made us put those on the screen because I want us to come to an invitation into a place of seeing and hearing this good news that comes when we are faithful with, yes, even our money. You know, a lot of times we don't want to talk about money, right? That's not one of those things you talk about at the Thanksgiving dinner table, is it? It's not what polite society discusses. But yet, when we look at Jesus and Jesus's example, Jesus talks most about agriculture. The second is money. Jesus constantly was talking about money. I think Jesus understood that we were inherently going to wrestle with money. And so Jesus has an interesting way of engaging with this, because when we look deeper at what is Jesus doing anytime he talks about money, he's talking about our relationship to money. Because here's the reality: money on paper, small ones in the room. You might not know this, but we used to print money on paper that we would put in our purses or these things called wallets. We still do. Believe it or not, I have money, paper money, in my purse still to this day. But on the surface, money is not inherently bad, nor is it inherently good. Money is simply a logical, rational tool that we use to exchange for services. However, if we're being really honest with ourselves, money is emotional, is it not? Money can represent so many things in our lives. Money can represent freedom. It can mean that we can have a good and comfortable retirement to enjoy our days after we have worked long and hard and beautiful years. Money can chain us through debt. Money can be the source of bringing a smile to a loved one's face because we took them to their favorite restaurant spot, or we took them and brought them to something that we know they love and enjoy. Money can represent fun, being able to engage in things like going with Methodist men to play golf Money can represent the things that give us security for today and for our future and for our children. Money is inherently emotional. And when we look at Jesus's words about money, he gets right into the heart of that relationship and our emotional relationship with money and invites us into beautiful, deep ways of being in relationship to that money. And so we come this morning to a story that perhaps you've heard a time or two in a stewardship series before. We're going to come to Luke's Gospel, chapter 21, and I'm going to read just 4 short verses to you. And it goes like this. Looking up, Jesus saw rich people throwing their gifts into the collection box from the temple treasury. He saw also a poor widow throw in 2 small copper coins worth a penny. He said, I assure you that this poor widow has put in more than all of them. All of them are giving out of their spare change, but she from her hopeless poverty has given everything she had to live on. You have heard it said, celebrate the widow and the widow's mite, that penny that she gave, for she gave everything she had to God and God's home on earth. But I say to you, travel with me back to chapter 20, the last verses in chapter 20 that go straight into the 4 we just read. In the presence of all the people, Jesus said to his disciples, watch out for the legal experts. They like to walk around in long robes. They love being greeted with honor in the markets. They long for the places of honor in the synagogues and in banquets. They are the ones who cheat widows out of their homes and show off. They say long prayers. They will be judged most harshly. But I say to you, care and love for the widow. There are over 30 commandments throughout Scripture that specifically charge and call us to love and care for the widows in our midst. So why would Jesus uphold the pretty bells and whistles that the Pharisees and Sadducees insisted upon over the love and care in a home for the widow on earth? I'm going to invite you to hear our first reading of Scripture one more time, holding in mind what we just read. Looking up, Jesus saw rich people throwing their gifts into the collection box for the temple treasury. He also saw a poor widow throw in 2 small copper coins worth a penny. He said, I assure you that the poor widow has put in more than all of them. All of them are giving out of their spare change, but she from her hopeless poverty has given everything she had to live on. Do you hear the rage and anger in Jesus's voice? I hear lament as well. In just a couple chapters, Jesus is going to flip tables. Do you see where it's beginning to build here? You have heard it said, give everything. But Jesus is inviting us to care and love the widow. In this relationship that we see with money, it is neither the Pharisees and their showing off of giving, nor is it the widow that is the exemplar of how we are called to give and love people. And Jesus invites us always to a better way. I know I've encountered this in my own life. You see, I think when we get into this relationship that we're called to have with money, Jesus is inviting us to ask ourselves, what are our values? And then what is our emotional state with money? And are the two working in tandem, or are they butting heads together? Those were some pretty words. What on earth did I just mean about that? All I can offer you is my own story in this. You see, I read this book, And in it, the author, who is a financial advisor, was talking about how you should name your money story. And she listed off Disney princesses that you might be like. And I found my story in the story of Sleeping Beauty. I lived my young adulthood in Sleeping Beauty's world. I was asleep to my money. I knew from a young age, I had been taught, I had seen, I longed in myself to save first, to give, and then live off of whatever was left. But you see, by being Sleeping Beauty, I was told by someone else that we save last. We save what is left in the bank account at the end of the pay period. And so it meant that I gave scarcely because I was worried that there wouldn't be enough for me to live on if I gave. Well, there is one exception to that though, because you see, if a matching gift was given online for a charity or a ministry that I loved, I would put it out to the world and I would tell everyone how much I gave so that others could come and join me in that giving. Ooh, that sounds a lot like the Pharisees, does it not? I gave extravagantly and loudly. I gave scarcely and quietly. And the way I lived was with a lot of shame because I didn't really know, did I have the money to do what I wanted to do with the money I had? So one day God bopped me over the head and woke me up. And I came back to these values that I knew were in me from like a young age. And I went to them again and I saw that I wanted to save first. I wanted to give. And when I looked at how I wanted to give, I wanted to give generously and with a heart filled with gratitude towards the ministries that I knew are powerful and impacting God's world for the sake of Jesus Christ's kingdom. And then I found something else because I did want to live. I wanted to live on the rest of it. And what I discovered in that living was I didn't want to just live. I wanted to live joyfully. And so I started asking myself, because it became very abundantly clear that my values I held and the way I was living were in competition with each other. And so I asked myself, what are small ways that I could begin to change that so that both of these might come in alignment? How could I change my emotional relationship to money? We can't even get to stewardship or giving or ministries or anything like that if we don't first know ourselves. So I found those values. Save first, give generously, live joyfully. Your values are your own. Only you can do the work to discover what your value on money is. For you, it might be security and future and comfortable living. I don't know. But I know that as disciples of Jesus Christ, if we hold that in relationship and alignment with who we're called to be, the values and our relationship with money can become a beautiful thing. And so as we walk together over the next few weeks, I invite you to not do the thing of being like, I can just skip, I'll just check it out online. Can we be a people brave enough to hear things that perhaps Jesus is calling us into a better way of being that impacts our life on a thing that we use every day, our money? You have heard it said, give everything like the widow. But Jesus says to you, know your relationship to money and live accordingly to your values in me. May we be a people who do the brave and bold work to make sure that the two are in alignment.